Okay. All right. Live feed is up, he says in the chat room. Somebody asked me this. Right. You know, I have a long-term quest to find an alcohol that isn't disgusting. Haven't found one yet, and apple cider isn't it? Just the hard cider. I think it was Mike's. No, it was. So maybe it was an Angry Orchard. I don't remember. I tried one. It was not good. Feed is up. He says in the chat room. Somebody asked me this. You are not coming through. Why aren't you coming through? Because I have the wrong microphone picked. Why is the wrong microphone picked? Because I didn't plug the other one in. This is why we do sound checks.
That's right.
Not only did it not sound good for me, but you weren't coming through at all.
I'm still muted in the Hangout, so yeah, everything should be good there.
No, I just didn't plug in my mixer. So now I've got to wait 95 seconds or whatever it is for the auto to catch up with me so I can actually hear if it made a difference.
So I think I irritated my ISP guys.
Uh-oh.
I think so. Because I had last week when I couldn't talk, I also didn't have any network.
So you couldn't talk to them, and so they cut you off?
Well, no. Well, remember,
because that's kind of the way you made that sound.
Yeah. Well, remember, I turned on Snort, and I was tinkering, and I forgot to turn off Strike Back. And so every time they did a scan to see if my network was working, it struck back.
Why would you do that? I mean, why is Strike Back even something you would turn on?
I was curious to see what load it would put on this firewall, so I turned it on to see.
So the idea there is anything unsolicited gets what? A block package, a SYNAC? What does it get?
I don't remember exactly how that package works in pfSense. Let me go look really quick.
No,
but it basically does yeah. I'll look it up really quick because I can't remember.
So I want to have this Boris box discussion. So yeah, we could. I don't know if there's enough for a whole topic on that, but what I'm going to talk about might lead into that. So we'll decide.
Well, that can be a teaser for next week. You know, that can be a lead in, and then we can talk about next week. We'll go over some different options that are out there. So, you know, kind of stir up some interest and synergize our episodes across the space-time continuum.
So really big words there.
So I have just started at work. Anytime somebody says reach out to, I physically reach out. I'm drawing attention to how stupid that expression is, and people look at me funny. It's like, we need to reach out to, and I reach out. People don't like it very much, but that's okay. I don't mind. You say something trite and meaningless, I have a right not right. I have the freedom to respond with a trite and meaningless gesture as well.
But Mark, here's the deal: they've got to do something for to justify the large monies these people spend on MBAs. So every business cycle, they go through and update the keywords so that the MBAs can feel important and tell you to do the same thing in new and exciting ways. Like, I'm dealing with a company, and they have offered so many teachable moments in their ineptitude service towards me. I feel like they're a freaking university, as much teaching as they need over there. Oh, well, this is a teachable moment. I'm like, teachable moment? Sheesh.
I saw a great thing. I think it was on Google Plus. It said, an efficiency expert is a man who thinks 9 women can deliver a baby in a month.
That would be funny.
All right, let's do a show.
Woohoo!
My Sunday school teacher this morning asked me to read something out of the book, a scripture.
Yeah.
And he referred to me as Mr. Podcast Man. So, Mr. Podcast Man, would you read this? So I started reading. And lo, verily, he said unto them, and I did it in my podcast voice, and people laughed. Okay. Something, episode 181. Here we go.
Okay, rock on.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everyday Linux, episode 181. That was my idea. Recorded February 22nd, 2015, and brought to you by Element OP Productions. ElementOP.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Linux show that's not about Linux, but about life in the context of Linux. I am your host, Mark, the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me this week, as usual, are your two stalwart co-hosts, Chris, the Command Line Godfather, and Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, and welcome to the craziness that is our show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome one and all to the great Everyday Linux show.
Step right up. Get your tickets here. See the bearded lady. That's what you sounded like there.
I was going to go somewhere, and then it was like, no, that's a dumb path. And I was like, ah. So
you're already too far down the path to turn around, huh?
Yep.
One of the classic quick-witted moments today, one of my friends, he met his wife at the fair. Or friend said, "You went to the freak show." She went to the freak show, and there you were. It was awesome.
That was a good one. I'll have to remember that one.
One of the best ones in my life was I was standing around with a group of people, and a guy casually asked, "Mark, was your mom a big woman?" Because I'm tall. And I said no. She's actually like 5'3". Was your dad a big man? And before I could answer, the guy behind us said, "No, but the milkman was."
Whoop! See,
that was a good moment. I had to give him 2 points for that one. Nicely done.
Okay, that was too
that would
funny
almost
to
be a high five moment on that one.
Yeah. So, as I said in the intro, the Linux show that's not about Linux, as promised, this show is not about Linux. Last week, I'm pretty sure it was last week, just on a tangential side note, I mentioned that I invented Pandora back when there wasn't the technology for Pandora or broadband or any of that sort of stuff. And I told a little story. So I got to thinking, maybe that would be an interesting show topic. Things that we have thought of before they were time or before the technology was ready. Things like that. I had a discussion with some friends today over lunch about that, and it was interesting. So I kind of thought maybe these guys are going to have some too, but also it'll be a springboard for you, the listeners. We have a smart audience right there, out there. You've all thought of something. What was the thing that you thought of but didn't deliver on, or the technology didn't exist at the time? So that's what we're going to talk about. But first, a little bit of meaningless drivel. Because that's what we do. Because before we get to the meaningless drivel, we've got the meaning. Yeah. Anyway, so last week, Mike the Brit asked about stacking routers. I think it was last week. Was that 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks.
Because you weren't here. Yeah, last week. Yeah. And he asked about could he put his ISP's router in front of his own router, and we said that you could do it in bridge mode. and that not everybody allows that. Well, it occurred to me that there's a third example that we didn't mention. In fact, the one that I'm using right now. Many routers will offer a DMZ mode, which is almost the same thing as a bridged mode. It's still you still have your firewall, but what it will do is DMZ, demilitarized zone, right? From military and war, basically. In the grand scheme of things, a DMZ is where your servers sit. So you sit behind on your private network with all your clients, just Joe and Jim and Jane's desktop. Then the web server that both Joe and Jim and Jane need to get and the world at large needs to get sits in the DMZ. That's an area where it's like its own separate little network. And that's the safest way to do networks. Rather than punching holes directly in a firewall to your servers, which is what almost everybody does. most guys, even in the big IT centers, don't do a DMZ because that's an irresponsible thing to say. Most guys don't. It is common not to do a DMZ because it adds its own sets of tricks, because you've got now two sets of rules about who can set things, and you could actually lock people out of your own servers while attempting to lock other people out of them, yada yada. But all of that to say, many routers offer a DMZ mode in which the router itself is that DMZ. So they have access to the internet and you have access to it, but there's no direct interaction between the internet and you. So you still then have to punch firewall holes and do routing and all that sort of stuff, but it gives your home router a publicly routable IP address. So you're not double natting, one of the things we talked about that was difficult, and you're not going through the ISP routers, perhaps janky firewall software. So just throw that out there. Did I just babble through that entirely? You're both staring at me blankly.
You're close. I would say, Mark, you made it through to an understandable point, but you went through a lot
I went a long way around.
Rush to get there. So yeah.
Why use 10 words to describe a situation
when 30 will do?
Will at least suffice. Yeah.
Anyway. Well, I realized as I was talking that, maybe there are people who don't understand that, so I need to back up and give a little more. And then, maybe people don't understand that. And before long, I was actually all the way back into a cave drawing with berry juice on the wall, and I couldn't get out. I was stuck.
You were stuck, and we just let you get stuck. And
yeah, thanks for helping me out.
Yeah, no problem. I like letting people talk themselves into a corner. It's kind of fun.
You know, what is the old saying? Better for people to think you're an idiot than open your mouth and prove them correct. So I was happy to be over here with my mouth closed.
My idiocy has been proven many times. But anyway, the point is that's another option that we didn't talk about. Bridge mode, connecting yourself directly to the network, which is very difficult. And then this DMZ mode, which was available on my AT&T router and may be available on others as well.
It's not worth looking. It's worth looking into it because it eliminates a little bit of stickiness if you're going to stack routers together.
Yeah. Sorry, that really turned into a big tar ball of mess. Sometimes it's obvious that I'm multitasking when I do this. I'm checking stats. I'm making sure the recording's working. I'm checking levels. That was one of those moments where it became really obvious. And you guys were just sitting back, just watching. We're not going to help. There's a life raft right here, but I'm not going to throw it to him. I'm going to make him. It builds character.
It does. It does. You get some hair on your chest now. Good for you.
You know, we like the raw nature of the show, Mark, so we just talked about that a couple of weeks ago, so we were letting you be raw.
Thanks.
It's great fun.
All right, so that was about that. I talked about the Pi 2 a little while back. Said it was out of stock. Well, it's no longer out of stock at one of the 3 distributors listed on the Raspberry Pi website, so mine is on my way to me. Should be here Tuesday. I'm super excited about the Pi 2.
That is awesome. I can't wait to hear what you think of it and what you end up using it for.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to use it for, but more on that in a minute. Welcome back, Chris. We glossed right over that. You were out last week, not well, so welcome back.
Well, wait. I wasn't technically ill. It's just I had no voice.
It was his birthday.
Yes. Chris always manages to get sick on his birthday or his anniversary or his wife's birthday.
I do, which is weird. But last week, I woke up Sunday morning and I had almost zero voice. It was actually a very quiet day in my household since I couldn't talk. And then on top of that, my network decided to go belly. Cosmic dueling of both possible problems at one time. So I've been fighting losing my voice for the last week. Even this morning, it was a little raspy and sounded like it was going to fall off at any minute. You know that voice that you hear people have when they're 85 and they've been smoking cigars for their entire life?
Yeah.
That's what I sounded like for a week. So, yeah. But so far, today, not so bad.
It hasn't been often, but there have been a few times that I've been tapped to do voiceover work for commercial projects, small commercial, like local chamber of commerce type projects. But sometimes when I think that a more grungy voice is necessary, I'll come down and record first thing in the morning. I'll get up out of bed and come straight down here and talk in this voice. Welcome to the world of hell. Because you have that different voice in the morning when you haven't talked for a while.
Sure. So I had that voice for a week, and then almost nothing that Sunday. So, yeah, it was great.
It was about 25 years ago, but I was actually tasked to be the voice of Satan once. That was fun.
That would be kind of entertaining.
It was a church Easter production, and I got to be the evil one himself. I did two versions. I did a fairly straight version, and then I did a really deep, ranting, foaming at the mouth version. And they said that when they played that version, the children in the show started crying. So they didn't do that one.
Nice. You should. You know what, Mark? You should try to get that as a voiceover from now. Publicize that and see if that'll get you some voiceover. Yes.
Like anytime there's Satan, just come to me.
Well, not just Satan. Any evil bad guy type persona.
Could be the Satan of the airwaves, Mark Cockrell.
The Satan of the soapbox.
We forgot. We lost a great nickname because of that. Yeah. Without that story.
I would like to do more voiceover work. I enjoy it. I think I don't entirely suck at it. But
I always thought it'd be fun to do be an audible person to do a reading. I always thought that would be great in not just great work, but mind-growing type work. Yeah. It's one of those things where you'd have to try and expand your verbal palette so you could vocalize everything correctly.
I could do a physics book or maybe a history book, something where it's one voice. But I don't have the vocal range to do some of these audible performers I've heard do 15, 16, 17 voices in the course of a book. And the really good ones, the moment you hear the character, you know who it is. You don't need the author to say, Johnson said X. You hear it. And the guy I've mentioned before, Christian Rummel, over 11 books in this series. He's had this one set of voices that he's been so consistent across 11 books that I know exactly who's speaking the moment they start speaking. He never mixes, there have been a couple of books where by the end of it, I wasn't quite sure whether it was person A or person B because the voice actor got a little mixed up. But in this case, this dude is amazing. So after I heard his work a couple of times, I was like, I can't be that. I could never be that guy. I could be the guy who reads, recipes. That I could do. But,
or the Martian. You could have done the Martian.
Yes, because that was like 4 voices.
See, I would be able to pull off multiple voices. The problem I always have, because when me and my family will play D&D every once in a while, and I'm always tasked as a game master, so I end up pulling all these different voices up. But what I always end up having a problem with is remembering which voice goes to which character.
Exactly.
So the way I figured myself, how to take care of it is I would sample myself doing each voice. So like a goblin or a hobgoblin or troll or whatever, I would sample it on my phone while I was doing it, and then when I would and I would be okay through the whole session, but then when we come back to do another round, I would then forget which voice was which creature. So then I would replay that sample before the game started and have that voice in my head before.
Yeah, I always thought that's probably how the professional readers do it. They sample, they record themselves, maybe make notes,
They would have to.
Yeah, about accents and stuff like that. Because when you're just reading a book, oftentimes the accent is not there. The author doesn't present you with anything more than male or female. Sometimes they'll give you age. But and sometimes by the name you can got to get ethnicity. But if you're talking about like a future sci-fi thing, you can't figure out what accent there's going to be on another planet 3,000 years from now. So that's up to the reader to figure that out and to perform that. And I'm always so impressed with the guys who can do that.
I always thought it'd be great. Oh, here we go. My voice is going already. So I always thought it'd be great to do it. It'd be interesting to be able to say that you do voices for a living.
So I would go ahead.
I was gonna say there's a website that wants to get more classic books online in an Audible format. You can submit one. You can submit work to them. I don't remember. I came across it one time, and I might have the link somewhere.
That'd be cool.
I've read about that. I would be a terrible host right now if I didn't mention elementopie.com/audible, where you can sign up for a free book. Essentially, you're signing up for the free 1 month. You're signing up for the 1 month plan, one book a month. It's I think $15.99 per credit, and most books are 1 credit. But if you sign up, get the book, cancel immediately, the book is still yours for free. So if you don't think you want to do it, that's a way to get a free book. If you're not sure you want to do it, it's a way to get a free month. And if you cancel at the end of or before the end of the month, you get it doesn't cost you anything. So it's a risk-free way to try out Audible. elementopie.com/audible. And we make a very generous commission on that when you choose to do that. So you'd be helping me and potentially helping you, unless you end up being like me and just start handing over large portions of your paycheck to Audible. That's what's happened to me.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I'm in that same boat. I just got my hand slapped by the wife when we were going over bills today, going, "Why did you spend $40 on books?"
Because they're good. Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, because they're great. I wanted to buy more, but I figured $40 was a little too much.
And the folks at Audible, they're clever, right? So they have these sales, right? So here's $1.99 for book 1 in a series of 7, because they're not stupid. They know that you pay the $2 and then you're immersed in that universe, and you got to go get the next one.
Mm-hmm.
They could give away the first Honor Harrington book.
Right.
I mean, my gosh, there's 1,000 books in that now.
Yes, 18 books in the Enderverse. And the Lost Fleet series. I said, I finished 11 books. That's in the Alliance series. There's another 8 or 12 books in the Syndicate series, and he's still cranking out books. So it's just a matter of time. By the time you get them all read, there'll be more.
The other thing that surprises me is when I'm reading those long series books like that, could you imagine how much work those authors have to do just to get those books planned?
And to keep everything internally consistent, right? I'm in book 12. I need to make sure I know what was in books 1 through 11, so that because particularly with geeks, sci-fi geeks, if you go off the rails, they will let you know fast.
Oh yeah. The same thing will be true with any of those with any of the genres. If you're a mystery novel guy and you're reading a series of books and you reference something that happened in book 2, but by calling it something that was in book 5, your readers are gonna freak. They're gonna light you up like a candle. So I always have to give those long authors, the people that can do long series, a lot of credit, because I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I when I was reading the Honor Harrington, the Honorverse, you know, it had been out for several years before I came across it, and it took me, because money was tight and I couldn't afford to buy a lot of them, it took me like 2 years to go from the first book up to the current book, which in real time, it's taken him 20 years to crank out those. And so
Right.
now I read the last book like 3 or 4 months ago. Like, I mean, I bought it hardcover, you know, and I'm like, I don't have another book to read. It's like, I'm caught up. I'm going to the wiki. I'm going to the I'm searching the internet. I'm on the author's page. There's not even hide nor hair of when the next book is due out. And I'm like thinking, dude, come on. For 2 years, you've been a part of my life, and now all of a sudden, nothing.
Yeah, it was my the exact same thing I just ran into. I hit book 11 of the Lost Fleet series that have been, you know, being cranked out for years. I've listened to them all in the last, you know, 8 or 9 months, and now there aren't any more. There's like the next year there might be another one written, and so that's why I recommend waiting until there's a big chunk of something. Right, go back and look at this classic, because Audible has such a huge library of stuff. You can do that. You can go back to something from the 70s, but man, there's a real letdown when you read something you know you can't follow up that story, because I've been following up like at most a month later, right? Usually within a few days of picking up the story, and then now I got nothing. I got to wait first for the book to be written, and then for it to be published on audio, and then I'll listen to that in, you know, 12 or 15 hours, and then wait another 2 years.
Yeah, I'm contemplating starting over with book 1 and rereading them, or you know, because some of them have been released out of like in chronological order. Go back and read all the stories in chronological order, and kind of so. But yeah, that's just because, you know, I'm a geeky nerd or nerdy geek.
Yeah. All right, so this has gone way too far. I mean, we're 20 minutes in here, and we've been talking about books. I didn't intend for that, but that's okay. This episode is all about us this week anyway. But we need to not be too long, because Seth is soon to be iced in. Ice Storm 2015 is coming to Dallas.
Yes, I'm calling it Ice Fest 2015. And I don't know, you know, Dallas is getting hit with free, you know, of course, here's the deal. A half inch of rain in Texas gets the same, or a half inch of sleet in Texas gets the same amount of reporting, has like 17 feet of snow in Boston. Right. That's like they're about the same event. There's this local site that lists all the closings. When I went there a few hours ago, there was one thing on it, and then I went there like 30 minutes ago. It was like 13 things, and now 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Oh, no work for me. Yes. Woo-hoo! Victory is mine. Yeah, I refreshed it, and my work policy is if the Dallas Independent School District is closed, there is no work where I am. So I get a paid vacation day tomorrow. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 32, 4, 6. 36 things are current. And when we were talking before the show started, and I told the guys there was like 13 things on it. So stuff's a closing fast and furious, and has Dallas, North Texas shuts down, has the coming Ice Age Armageddon.
Yeah, we had that happen here last week. There was the threat of severe weather, and so it was President's Day, right? So a lot of schools were out anyway. I don't know why. But the one school district that wasn't closed, and then the next day was closed again, and there was nothing. There was, I mean, that morning where everything was closed down, I made my usual 70-minute commute in like 30 minutes. Because there was not a car on the road. I was flying along on perfectly dry pavement, like me and 7 other cars, just whoop, oh, this is awesome. They should close things every day, because there was nothing. There was barely even any rain, but you can't know, right? If you're the one person who makes somebody come into work on the day that there is ice, you're the goat, right? If you close down things and there's nothing, you're the goat again. It's a no-win situation. So we actually called my wife's boss and told her that the county school district had been closed so that she could cancel school, because her workplace has the same thing. If this county closes, we close. And she didn't know it yet. It was like 11:30. I was looking on my phone. Oh, there we go. Schools are closed.
I wish we had that policy up here, man. We've had freezing rain, freezing fog. Doesn't matter.
Well,
Man,
we've talked about this before. You have the
I know.
infrastructure for it. You know how to handle it. We don't.
Well, yeah, but it's crazy when I hear that. It's like, oh, you guys had a half an inch of freezing rain. We had that yesterday in
Yeah.
schools. Still
There's a word
running.
for that in Montana. It's called Tuesday.
Yep, pretty much.
And also,
Actually, Tuesday we're supposed to have snow. So yay.
it's a little different when things get well below freezing and that ice is like hard and you can
Right.
drive on it and you can get traction. But when things hover right around freezing, it is worse. It is, it's harder to drive on. It's harder for airplanes to ice and de-ice when the temperature hovers right around freezing. So it rarely gets cold enough long enough for Texas to have the ground covered in ice where driving is actually less dangerous than whenever it's right around freezing and you get the black ice conditions everywhere. So, yeah, and plus, we're in Texas. So,
Deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just always makes me laugh because we also had, what was it, I think it was last week, Friday, something like that. No, maybe it wasn't. Anyway, we've been a couple of days of negative teens and lower lower with the wind, and it was just like, yeah, it's a little cold. I think I'll put my other heavy jacket on. Oh, it's now noon, and it's now 10 degrees. I should take my heavy jacket off.
So I'm working the other day. It's -3 wind chill. It's like 10 degrees real, and -3 wind chill. And I'm walking across the parking deck in a short sleeve shirt and slacks. And one of my coworkers is like, "What are you, insane?" I was like, "I'm going 90 feet from a nice warm truck to a nice warm office. I don't think I'll die, and I don't want to have to carry a coat with me all day. I'll be fine. There's a coat in the car if I need it. I'm good." But yeah, people here in the South, they just go nuts about that.
And that happens here. We have a parking garage 4 floors down, so you have to get up. You get out of the elevators into this little outside hallway, and then you walk into the building. And people are like bundled up in like
scarves on and hoods.
And I'm walking around in my short sleeve. I have my jacket over my arm just in case a blizzard hits in the next 2 seconds. And they're like, "Aren't you cold?" And I'm like, if I were spending all day out here, yes, but for 10 feet, this feels awesome. And so, yeah, fun time.
Of course, we're well insulated, right? There's a lot between the outer elements and our core. So I get it.
That's what I tell them. I packed on the insulation early. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, one of the things I said is, one of my coworkers, how do you do that? The same way seals and whales and polar bears do. Exactly the same mechanism is in play here. Layers of blubber.
That's right.
Yeah, this is totally going off the subject.
Even more?
But, we were when a bunch of us at church were all losing weight at the same time, and we were all counting our calories, and I said, yeah, I can. This one person, she's like trying to lose 2 ounces or something, and so she's like, I can only have 1,200 calories, and I'm like, I can have like 3,000 calories and still lose 1.5 pounds a week.
Yeah.
And she goes, "I'm so jealous," and I go, "Hey, don't be jealous. I put in the work to be able to do this. You didn't."
Yeah, it's really easy to lose 100 pounds fast. First, put on 200 pounds.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. One other thing that I wanted to present to the audience, and this has to do with the Pi 2 and the questions coming up later and recently about firewalls. Aaron, formerly of this podcast, has been talking to me for a while about the fact that we need to create an EDL product. And this new Pi 2 coming out is enough for me to think this is a good idea. I want to create a Boris box, an official Everyday Linux Boris box. So it would be based on the Pi 2. We'd throw in another NIC card. I did it. Pin machine, pin number, ATM machine, NIC card. We put in another network card. We would preload one of our favorites, and maybe we'd have 2 or 3 flavors of our favorite firewalls on it. So maybe we'd have an easy one, a grandma approved, drop it in. It's no harder to use than the current Linksys device that you have now, and maybe a Tinker's mode that's running raw IP chains.
Wow.
Something like that. But it would be something that we would sell, right? So the Pi and all the components and the box and all that might cost us, $80. We'd sell it for $100. It'd be a way for us to generate some income and a way for you to have a literal Boris box. I'm going to have, maybe get an artist friend of mine make a Russian-looking box that's all ratty and none of the angles are straight, and just looks ragged, and it would be the Boris box product with the official EDL branded Boris box. So, guys, what do you think about that? And audience, what do you think about that?
I like
You
the idea.
better buy BorisBox.com now before somebody else does.
It's already owned, but it doesn't matter. I am convinced that URLs are irrelevant. You go to your search engine, you type Boris box. As long as we're the first one that comes up, it doesn't matter who owns the domain.
It says
True.
this web page is parked for free.
Right,
So,
meaning somebody owns it. Somebody bought it and is parked.
oh, is that what that means?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So, Chris, what are your
Kudos, who
thoughts on that?
I like it. I like the idea. I think we'd have a small argument about which distros would go on them, but that's all right. We can have a vote off, and we'll figure out which ones will make it on as far as that goes.
So, audience, what are your thoughts on owning your very own Boris box? I know that this audience tends to be more tinker-minded, and that's fine. But we would give you the packaging and the branding, and plus you would know that you're supporting us. So it'd be it would be our own. I might get some. I know a couple of guys with 3D printers. Maybe we'd print our own cases before.
There you go.
I don't know. I haven't quite worked out the logistics of how that's going to happen. But first, I need to see what the interest is. And again, it's not necessarily to make money, although making money is not a bad thing. I wouldn't mind doing it. It's mainly just to have this sort of token of the podcast.
Right. I like the idea. I think it'd be cool. I would even probably buy 1 or 2 just to have them, just so I can have them on my wall.
Yeah.
And
And then
there with the 1UP mushroom.
and a companion product would be our media center in a box. Running Plex or XBMC or whatever we like. Maybe even get somebody to build our own theme. But it seems to fit the niche of the do-it-yourselfers and the geek and the guys who like this podcast. So, audience, tell me, based on what you tell me, I will either proceed with this or make a couple for Christmas presents for Chris and Seth.
Either way, it should be great fun.
But I plan to put my Pi 2 coming in straight into my media center and see if I get increased performance, because I still get in really high def stuff, mainly animated stuff where every pixel is changing. It stutters, and I'm hoping that maybe throwing the 600% increase in horsepower at it will help.
It can't hurt.
I
know
love
my
the
little.
idea.
I was gonna say my little Roku's handle it, and I don't even think they have that much horsepower. So
Yeah, it's all about the hardware, really. Go ahead, Seth.
I was gonna say I love the idea of it.
Most
After you moved over to the topic, I wanted to.
Yeah. you were searching domains before that.
Yes.
Most home router devices are running ARM chips with at 300 or 400 megahertz with 256 megs of RAM, not much more, or in some cases even less, than the Raspberry Pi that is out now, the Pi 1. And my hunch is that those will drop in price, and we might be able to, if they work well, if we can experiment with those and get them to work well, we'd be able to pick those up for $15, $10, whatever the price is going to drop to in the near future. And really be able to produce a DIY ARM-based home router that's not going to be super powerful, but then again, neither is the thing you're going to go to Best Buy and get.
true. It'd be something to play with at the very least.
Right.
Even if they didn't keep the firewall software on it and they flashed it with something else, they would still have the cool Boris box logo on it. So there you go.
You have cash? Good.
You want that forwarded? Done.
Don't touch. It work. So let's move on to our one bit of listener feedback from Greg, who titles it, quote, miscellaneous crap about episode 179. I already like you, Greg. He says, global warming. Mark stated exactly what my view is. Yes, global warming exists. However, I don't think that mankind has much impact in it at all. I'd go on, but I'm sure you're getting a lot more email about this subject. Bandwidth restrictions. Have you guys actually measured your bandwidth usage? My only choice for broadband is Armstrong One Wire. I have a cap of 200 gigs per month. If I go over that, it's $10 per 50 gigs. We have a Roku that's streaming Netflix at least 4 hours a day, a kid that's playing Steam games a lot, and another that's playing Minecraft a lot. Both of these kids stream Netflix for an hour or two a day. I have both my Plex box running and streaming out to either my Kindle or my wife's tablet for an hour, two or three times a week while waiting for my daughter's dance class to finish up. We've gone over that 200 gig cap 2 times in the past year. Once when my son decided he had to wipe his laptop and re-download all those Steam games. The other was a combination of him downloading a lot of games and me downloading several ISOs and doing pull downs of all the update packages. So we talked about, Chris, of like a 300 gig limit would be not enough. I'm going to pick up with his email later. I have measured my bandwidth just once. And it wasn't, honestly, all that much, but I do a lot of downloading of big files, ISOs and things like that, just playing with stuff. So I jokingly said that 300 gigs, we'd use that up in a couple of days. Realistically, probably not, but I do think that 200 or 300 gigs wouldn't last my family consistently every month. And Chris, you do measure your bandwidth, right?
Yeah, I turned off the package that I was using. I'm looking to see if I have it on still so I can get to it really quick so I can show you I can tell you what my month is as of today.
22 days in.
Yeah, 22 days in. Let me see here. Go on while I'm looking because I got to find the package.
Okay. Well, I'll keep reading the rest of his email. He moves on to say, excuse me, Linux router question. So I decided that, and I scrolled off the page. I decided that since I'm working with Red Hat at work, I will benefit me to get my Red Hat Certified Engineer certification. I bought a Lenovo TS140 server and slapped in a 1 gig drive. I have to say I really like this box, and it will become my Plex box after I get my certification. I figured that it would work for the dance studio and SSH, that I could work from the desk studio and SSH into the server. I enabled port forwarding of port 22 to this box and was able to SSH into it from the studio. I played around a little and got out. 2 days later, when I SSH'd into it again, there were 4,576 failed login attempts from that box. I'm thrilled that my password is good, but I don't want to take a chance. So I disabled port forwarding. When I turned on port forwarding, I put a line in Plex, and that worked. When I was disabled port forwarding, I was able to restart Plex, and it was working fine again. Since I have port forwarding turned off, how is my Plex box talking to Plex TV and streaming out of my network? As a side note, I would like to be able to make port forwarding secure so I can SSH into the box from anywhere. I'd like to be able to work on it from any place without having a big security hole. Thanks for the podcast. So before we do that, Chris, do you have your numbers?
I do.
Okay.
So for the month of February, which, mind you, has been a light month for us because a lot of things came up for kids to do things. So far, my main Plex boxes have been gobbling up 40 gigs each in this month.
So that's how many?
That's 3. So 3 Plex boxes, 40 gigs each.
So 120 gigs just there. Okay.
Just there. Now you add in the machines of anywhere between 20 and 40 gigs, depending on which ones you're looking at. That would be my son's machine with his Minecraft, my main box, and my wife's laptop, and then the tablets and phones. So the tablets and phones are low. The total is just over 300 for the month.
Yeah, so in 3 weeks, 22 days, you've already gone over what would be a 300 gig cap at your house.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
And like I said, this has been a light month because we've been out doing all our other stuff this month with Taekwondo and dance and everything else. So
my kids pretty much have YouTube running 24/7 or Netflix between the 3 of them. So yeah, I again, I haven't measured it significantly. I've only taken snapshots here and there, and I would need. I'm gonna guess that we consistently use 350 to 400. I'm the guy your ISP is mad at. I'm the reason there are caps.
Yeah, me too. You know, and that's just because of the way my household's set up. So, sorry, guys.
All right, so now to go back to his thing. So 2 questions there. How is the Plex box talking back to Plex.tv? There's 2 ways that can happen. The most likely way is UPnP, Universal Plug and Play. That was something I believe Microsoft invented a while back. If not, they were in on the consortium that invented, but I think they were the ones who came up with it. UPnP is a way for your devices in your house to configure your router to allow things to talk to them. Don't panic. It's actually a good thing. UPnP is how your Plex box, without you monkeying with anything, can talk out to the Plex server and let the Plex server talk back. UPnP is how your Xbox and your PlayStation can communicate and do peer-to-peer games. I'm pretty sure Steam uses some UPnP stuff also to get the lagging down. It's a configuration. It's an automatic configuration. Most routers will clear that table after a set amount of time or on a reboot. So that you're not, it's not forever, but also the client has the ability to shut those things down. The problem is that there are some badly designed routers that will let you in UPnP work from the outside, which it was never designed to. So somebody can send a packet to your router and say, hey, let me in, and the router says, okay, and does. Most of those have been filtered out now and updated, and if you bought anything in the last 2 or 3 years, I don't think that's going to be a problem. But that's why UPnP has a bad name among the neckbeard set. So that's probably how your Plex server is doing it. Secondly, it's possible that Plex, the website, I've noticed, plays tricks with that, and it doesn't actually talk back to your server. It asks your laptop or your computer to query the local network and see if it can find one, and then presents it to you. It's a little JavaScript hack. It's never actually leaving your network. So I had my Plex server shut down for a while. It wasn't reaching out, but if you were on my network and access Plex.tv, you would think that Plex.tv was getting it. It wasn't. It was just having your machine query the local network and say, hey, is there a Plex server here? So it's one of those 2 things that's probably happening.
Well, there's that, and I wonder if there isn't some IPv6 tunneling over IPv4 that could be going on too, because isn't that supposed to change or bypass some of the restrictions that could be in place?
I know that exists, but I haven't experimented with it very much, so I can't answer that.
Okay. I haven't played with it either. That's why I just was bringing it up, because I thought there was something to do. One of the ways that IPv6 can get out is to tunnel through IPv4, but marked as a different protocol, so it just goes out.
Yeah, well, that's called the Teredo protocol, and it does that. But I don't know that it can bypass regular rules. Maybe it can. I'm not sure. So anyway, and then the next question you talked about was opening ports. If you open port 22 to the internet, you will be hacked. End of discussion. If you still want to be able to SSH into something, route some other port publicly to route to port 22 on your machine. So pick a random 6-digit number, and I mean random. Don't use a phone number. Don't use an address. Just mash on your keyboard a few times and pick 6 of the numbers out of the middle, or 5 of the numbers, and route that port to port 22 on your box, and then on your client use that random number. That reduces the likelihood that anybody's going to A, stumble on that open port, and B, try SSH traffic over the port that they stumble onto.
Yeah, that's the only way to be safe about SSH. Otherwise, you're just asking to be hit. When I had my snort filters on for a while, no matter even if you don't have 22 open, you're still getting hammered on it. It's just that traffic is being dropped.
Right.
So you'd be amazed at how many different ports are actually being hammered on your router every day, and you just don't know about it. 22, 23, 80, 80, those are common ports for
21,
common services.
23,
21.
25.
Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen is those ports are going to get just nailed to the dirt when it comes to traffic from any country. Seth gave us that map a couple of weeks ago of all the traffic and attacks. Good example of which ports are commonly being attacked, and there you go.
Yeah.
That type of thing is going to come after you just as easily.
So good passwords, randomized ports. I have VNC open to the public, and I'm not worried about telling you that because it's nowhere near port 5900, which is VNC. So anybody looking for that would have to stumble on the random port that I picked, and it was random. It wasn't. Don't use anything meaningful to you. Don't try to remember it. That's where people get into trouble. They pick things they can remember. If you can remember them, somebody else can probably guess them. I have web traffic open. I have SSH traffic open. These are things that I have drilled holes into my firewall to particular devices and my Plex server. But I let Plex handle UPnP. It's doing that on its own because when you do that, your how can I say this? The UPnP protocol is limiting the incoming IP addresses that traffic can come from. That's part of how that works. So it has told my firewall to allow the Plex range of addresses in. So nobody else could get there anyway. So that's why UPnP is not the monster that lots of people like to think it is. If it's used well. If it's used well.
With it under chains and dog collars so you don't let it get away. That would be also another good thing to go check your shields up over on our friend Steve Gibson's website, because that's a good place to check to see how much stuff is actually, what ports you have open. Because your router, if you're not using, say, a Boris box, your router might be letting ports in that you don't know about.
Yeah. Right now, I'm running 2 Skype instances to talk to Chris and Seth. Those are going out via UPnP because Skype is able to dynamically switch ports as the conversation is going on, tell my router, make those updates. They happen in rapid speed, and you get the best performance out of Skype if you let PNP loose, UPnP, but you can't be afraid of it.
Well, that's almost the only way to handle most of that stuff anyway. Most of the times, unless you want to statically start mapping ports, which after the first time you try to start statically mapping ports, you're going to start realizing why UPnP was even invented, because it's a very painful process to go through and manually map ports, because then you also have to worry about if you have multiple machines behind your network and you've port forwarded to directly to a machine, that means those ports are tied to that machine.
Right.
So they can't go to another one.
So next week we're going to do a show all about firewalls. It's going to be the common things to look out for, the things that people think you should worry about that maybe you shouldn't. UPnP will be discussed again, and we're going to talk about our favorite subjects because it's a favorite software. It's something that's come up repeatedly with the Boris box discussion that we just had. So I think it's time to do another firewall episode. And Greg, thank you for helping to kick that off.
You know, it would be cool if we could find somebody in the field that is a firewall guru.
Yeah, it would be even better if you could find one who can speak English. That's the problem. And that wasn't a foreign slam. That was an engineer slam. Often you get these people who can speak TCP, but they can't speak English.
Right.
Yep.
It'd be nice to find somebody who could be in that, you know, they could be covering both bases there, because it would be really cool to hear somebody who is a professional firewall maintainer. You know, that's their job. I think that would be a really great I just lost my train of thought. Anyway,
resource?
There you go. That'll work.
Because that's the corporate thing to say. They're not people. They're resources.
No. Capital.
Oh, is that the new thing?
Resources. Yeah, the newest thing is human capital. I wish you can't make that up. You're no longer people. You're no longer human resources. You're human capital. You know, so just throw some human capital at it.
Yeah, I can just. We don't have the human capital for a project of that magnitude. I can hear somebody saying that.
I could too. I think I have. Now that you say that.
Wow. Somebody asked me just recently, why do I hide my face behind this screen cover, the windscreen? 3 reasons. A, it sounds better. B, I'm not that fun to look at, and C, you can't tell how bad the lag is in the audio and video when I'm doing this. Just now I watched Chris move his mouth, and it was just like an old Chinese kung fu movie. He was talking, and the audio came in at a totally different time. So, quick answer to that question. So now let's move on to, hey, that was my idea. And this may be a short discussion because maybe we're not all that creative. But Seth, you created one of my favorite TV shows.
Yes, I actually. It was in school, and we had write anything you wanted to, and so I wrote about this kid in Egypt and got transported to another planet through a flash of light. They didn't know where they were. They didn't know what was going on. This was before the movie came out.
Say, this sounds vaguely familiar, like I've seen that on the big screen.
Yeah, and then lo and behold, a few years later, out comes this movie Stargate, and then this series Stargate SG-1. And one of the reasons I love them so much is like, that's my imagination I'm watching. So, it was really cool.
I've had a few over the years. I mentioned Pandora. I wish I had come up with the human capital to reach out and resource that. Because I wouldn't have to be talking to you now. For a brief while there in the early 2000s, I believe it was BMW, had a single windshield wiper on their windshield so that you don't have that stripe in the middle that never gets wiped. I invented that.
I remember you talking about that. It went up and down.
Yeah. No, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. The BMW version was just mounted in the center, and it still left corners to the side, but they were farther out. My design went totally left to right like a squeegee, popped up and left no space. So I invented that. Nobody's using that anymore, probably because it was hard to do and not worth the effort, and regular windshield wipers are just fine. So there you go. But I did invent that.
There's a couple of things that I always thought I invented first, but I never actually, was able to bring it to market. Smart projectors where you could actually write on the board and they would recognize.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I thought of when I was in high school back in 99, 98, and, around that area where, it was like, well, why don't we just have something that we can just draw on the board and it put that on the computer? Because I've seen people that could do beautiful, whiteboard art and then have it gone and no way to bring it back up.
Right.
So, yeah, I've thought of that way back then, but obviously I was before my time.
Yeah. One of the other things I invented back in the glory days of tube televisions, when letterbox format was just being popular on 4-head VCR tapes. So let's set the scene, people. A lot of people didn't like the letterbox format because you had the black bars at the top and bottom. I have always been a huge proponent of letterbox format because when you pan and scan, when you cut that down to 4:3, you literally lose like 40% of the video. It just goes away. In fact, there was I believe it's League of Their Own. I think that's what it is. There's a scene where two main characters are talking to each other, looking at each other. One of them says the line, the other one reacts to it. In the 4:3 letterbox version, you don't see the reaction. It totally changes the scene because they didn't pan and scan it. So I've always been a big fan of letterbox, but nobody likes the black bars at the top and bottom. It's still a problem. People still don't like that.
Right.
But now it's when you're watching 4:3 content on a 16:9 TV. So I invented a TV that was 16:9 all the time and had little sliding louvers that came in when you were watching 4:3 content. So it closed in part of the screen, so it was like a console. There was such a thing as a TV console. Get off me. So this would have fit. It would have been wood grain. Yes, I said wood grain on a TV. I'm old. So my idea was to have these things come in, and so that never happened on TVs. What happened was we changed TVs. But where you do see my idea is at the movie theater. where you're watching the little cheap projector with the pre-screen stuff, and then the curtain slide down and another curtain slides in to change the aspect ratio. I invented that. You're welcome.
And you didn't hear a word about it when it came out,
No.
when they moved to it. God darn it.
Yeah. If I had just told somebody about my idea, maybe that would have made a difference.
No, you told me.
me.
I just didn't do anything with
Yeah.
it. I remember these conversations.
You guys got anything else? Or is that it? Your one claim to fame is Stargate?
I mean, come on. If you only got one,
Yeah, that's a pretty
good
good
one to have. So
Yeah, there's been a couple of movies that I swear I was a part of before they came out too. I just don't have the exact names because they were like, in case anybody hasn't realized, I'm a big fantasy guy, and so there's been a lot of movies. It's like, wait, I did that. That was part of one of my campaigns 2 years ago, and yet there it is on the big screen. It's like, somebody's stealing my brainwaves.
I wrote a fantasy novel in the 10th grade. It was terrible, and I'm glad it doesn't exist. But it was the classic wizard and giant and dwarf and archer meet up in a strange set of circumstances, and I'll go off on a quest. It was every cliche in the book, every trope imaginable thrown in there for good measure.
Awesome.
The next one is not ours, but it's not mine, but it belongs to the show. Aaron, who used to be on the show, invented the self-tuning guitar. So the idea was you have pickups, an extra set of pickups under the strings on an electric guitar, and then a set of servos where you strum the guitar. Each pickup listens to just the string above it and listens to where it is, and then the servos tighten or loosen the strings as necessary. So you go, and you're in tune. He invented that, told us about it. I remember that idea, and now you can actually buy that product. Sorry, Aaron. You shouldn't have told me about it. You should have told an inventor or a investor about it.
Yeah, venture capitalist. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to be a venture capitalist. Could you imagine all the cool ideas you would see in a year?
Well, there's two steps to being a venture capitalist. First, become a billionaire. Second, invest in cool ideas. I'm still working on step one.
I think we're all still working on step one.
Yep.
Come on, Element OP. Where's my millions?
Well, when I get it, you will get a cut of it. I promise.
Sure. Wink, wink.
And the last one is actually one of my favorite apps on the phone right now. Is one that I invented. I just didn't tell anybody about. It's called Cam Scanner. I'm not sure if it's available for iPhone. I think it is. You take a picture, and it takes that picture and spits it out as a PDF. So you have your own scanner built right into your phone. I use it not all the time, but I use it frequently enough. Anytime somebody says, "Hey, can you, fax this form to me?" No, because I don't live in 1992, but I will email it to you. So I invented that back before every phone had a camera in it. Back when the little flip phones were just getting cameras, I thought, wouldn't it be great if you just take a picture of this and then could spit it out as a printable format? Yeah, you could email pictures, but wouldn't it be great if you could change the format? Well, somebody did that, and now you can buy their app for 99 cents, and I did, and it's worth it.
I was gonna say I thought
Cool.
Google Apps has an app that does that built into the Google. It's a Google widget for Google Drive.
Okay, I believe you.
I've been using that for a long time. Anytime I see a form or a recipe is the one I use it a big thing for. When I see a recipe or somebody hands me a recipe card, it's like snap. Okay, thank you for the card, and now I have it in my recipe folder on Google Drive.
A long time ago, I was in a webinar with my boss at the time, and the last slide of the webinar was contact information. And we were sitting at his desk. I was standing behind him, and we were watching the webinar on his computer. And the thing came up, and he started grabbing for a pen to write down this information. I took my phone out, held it up, snapped a picture of it, emailed it to him, and he went, "Oh, thanks." It was like, yeah, that's the reason I hired you. I forgot. You're the guy who doesn't do scrabbling around for paper and pencil.
That's right, because that's silly.
I take pictures at work all the time of whiteboards. Right? It's like instead of why on earth would I transcribe what somebody already put on a whiteboard? Why would I make notes that somebody already made notes of when I can just take a picture of it?
Yeah, I'm with
That
you.
is a freaking brilliant idea. Oh my gosh, I love it. I've
You just have a
never
brain.
thought of doing that before. Because I never take notes, so the concept of writing it down, I'm just too lazy to do that, and I write too slow, and my handwriting's too ineligible or illegible. But dude, I could hold up my camera and
Yeah.
snap, and have the
Yeah.
monkey sound.
So that's 2 ideas I've given you, Seth: the snapping a picture of the whiteboard and the vacation spreadsheet. You're welcome.
Yeah, I like that.
See what bringing up
I'm
vacation
gonna put a pin in this
spreadsheets.
episode.
Oh God.
Let's
Seth,
circle
you're
back to
gonna
that.
drive me to drink.
If I can get some human capital, we can develop these things.
Oh, fun. Now I forgot what I was gonna say.
So, all right, we've stumbled into that. What are some life hacks that you guys do that maybe I don't know about?
Oh, there's so many. The
Rem-
one that I usually use a lot of is the Google Notes. Now that you can share notes over Google, me and my wife use that for everything. Seeing a good movie come up, a trailer on a TV, we'll Google Note it. We'll type it into Google Notes, and then that, or the it's not Google Notes. What the heck is that called?
Keep.
Keep. That's it. And then we share them together. So when she sees one, she'll put it on with her initials after it, saying that she put it in, and I'll put it in with my initials. And then when we sit down for movie night, we can go, well, what do we want to watch? We have a list of every movie that we want to watch, the kids want to watch, somebody suggested a movie. It's right there. I do the same thing with books. It's just Google Keep is my friend. I use that thing every day. I have a widget just for Google Keep on my phone.
I'm an Evernote guy. Same thing, different tool.
Yep.
That's cool stuff.
Yeah. We also use that Keep for our bucket list. So when we come across things we want to do, we'll bucket list it, and that's the name of the note.
When I do need to take notes in a meeting, my corporate structure where I work is such that all the good tools, like, for example, Evernote, is blocked. You can't use it. So what I do is I'll take a note and then email it to myself, and then take that note and put it on my work computer. That's not much of a hack, but it is something that I do frequently.
One thing I just found out at work is that I can go into Exchange and Outlook and do notes in Outlook, and then I can sync those with my iPhone. So
yep, I use that one a lot too, especially if you have long, complicated paths to remember. I'll go to Outlook, paste the path into the task, because for me, my tasks synchronize, the notes don't. So I can synchronize tasks. Well, I'll just put it in the task as the file path, and then I have that wherever I go. Within a couple of clicks, I have it whenever someone corners me to, take care of something.
Do you have an iPhone at work, Chris?
Yes, I do.
The notes is not synced by default, but you can go into your settings and sync them.
Oh, really?
I just recently found that out, and because there's tons of stuff I need, hey, how do I do this? And so I was like, I'll bring up that note, copy and paste into an email, and shoot it over to them. So yeah,
is that something you have to change on the phone itself or on the server side?
You change it on the phone itself. You go into settings, and then you go down to mail, contacts, calendars. Then you pick your Exchange account, and there's mail, contacts, calendars, reminders, and notes. By default, notes is off. You turn notes on and give it a bit to sync, and you're good to go.
Awesome. I'll have to go do that when I leave the show.
All right, so here's another life hack from me that I just recently shared with a coworker. It's 3 tools, right? So I have a Google Calendar specifically for my work stuff. Just go create a Gmail account. It's fine. I sync my Outlook calendar to my Google Calendar. Now, you used to be able to do that using Google Sync. Just very recently, Google Sync was deprecated. It's been deprecated for like a year, but it still worked. Like in August, they changed the API, so now it doesn't work anymore. So I have a little app called, very creatively, Calendar Sync Pro. It was like $9. There's a trial version that you can check out. The trial version is only one-way syncing. You can push from a primary, but not pull back from the other one. The Pro one, it's worth it. Just do it because I said so. It's India. It's in some. The website has something to do with India, so you'll know that's the one. India PPP, I think it is. Anyway, that syncs my two calendars back and forth, so I can delete something on my Google Calendar on my phone, and it's deleted on my Outlook calendar at work. Every hour is how often it syncs up, or I can do it the other way around. But then the third leg of the stool is an app called Agent on my Android phone. Agent scans my calendar and selectively mutes my phone anytime there's a meeting with a status of busy. So I don't always have to remember to turn my phone off. And also, so if somebody sends me a text when I'm in a meeting, it replies to them, I'm in a meeting right now, reply with the word urgent, and the text will come through. So you can do that. Or I have it silence as calls. If anybody calls twice within 5 minutes, it will let that second call through, assuming it's an emergency. So that's the meeting feature of Agent. There's also a sleep feature of Agent based on parameters you set up. Mine is if it's after 11 o'clock, it's charging, and I haven't touched my phone in 10 minutes, it goes into sleep mode. Sleep mode has the same things. I'm sleeping right now, text urgent, and I'll let it through, or 2 calls can come in. Or, for example, my boss can send me a text or a call at any time, regardless of my meeting settings. You can set up different people for different tasks. So my boss has an exclusion in the meeting task so that, I don't want him to get a text message saying I'm in a meeting. He has the right to pull me out of a meeting. There's a driving one that can be based off of GPS. I don't use that. I use it off of my Bluetooth. When I connect it to my car's Bluetooth, any incoming texts are read to me, and I get the option to reply back in voice. And calls, you can either just have them not sent, or I go ahead and have them routed through to my earpiece. That triumvirate of tools makes me so much more productive. I have my calendar everywhere I need to be. I have my phone. I don't have to remember to mute my phone. Remembering to mute my phone when I go into a meeting is not hard. Remembering to unmute it when I come out is what I always had trouble with. So I walk around all day with a muted phone and nobody can contact me.
Yeah, I've done that. That's why I'm looking up. Is Agent from Ego Motion?
Let me look. It's the only one called Agent. Yeah.
Big A? Okay. I remember you bringing that one up before, and I was like, oh, that sounds perfect. But I couldn't remember what you said it was, so now that you bring that up, I'm going to go look at that one after the show. I'll bring up Trigger. That's my favorite tool, at least for mobile, especially if you have a handful of these little stickers laying around that have
NFC tabs.
The NFC tab, I use these things for just about everything when I don't want to, if it's a repetitive task. So because the highway I drive on to go to work is a dangerous one, there's been a bunch of wrecks on it, yada yada. My wife panics. She worries about me. And so I have a sticker at work sitting on my monitor, and so when I get to work, I swipe my phone over that sticker, and it automatically sends her a text message saying I made it to work okay. It will mute my phone, or it'll put my personal phone to vibrate, and it will automatically turn off my Wi-Fi because I'm at work and I don't have Wi-Fi access, and will text my son for his wake-up call in the morning. All with one swipe of a sticker. So, and I have it set for a handful of other things. I wish I didn't have to use 2 different apps, but I do a lot of phone automation with Trigger, the NFC stickers, and if this then that.
Yep.
And if this and then that would allow me to add NFC stuff to it, I wouldn't have to have both of them. But I got a bunch of if this then that things going as well. Soon to be more as I add some more automated tools to my house, like lights and locks and things of that sort.
Cool. Anything else that you guys can think of? I find this stuff fascinating. When you guys have given me stuff that I will probably go and try. Listeners, let us know what your life hacks are. As well.
You want some of these stickers, Mark? Do you have? They're cheap. I can send you some. I have extras. So
what do you mean by cheap? How much do they cost?
When I bought my first round, I bought 20 of these little. They're just paper thin stickers. I bought 20 of these, and then a keychain and 6 heavier, like rubberized buttons that you can actually, they're buttons. I bought all of them for like $22 shipped.
Oh, yeah, okay. So that is dirt cheap.
Yeah, they're, when you just buy like a handful, the 20 pack of stickers, it's like $6.
Okay.
And if you actually go through the Trigger app and buy it from them, they just charge it through Google Wallet and ship it to you.
So every time you throw one of those on somewhere, you're dropping a quarter. Yeah, that's not a big deal.
Yeah. And especially, the keychain, I will say don't buy the keychain one. It's just a leather hook it's a keychain, but the leather that they use to bind it to your key ring is kind of poor, so that leather wears off pretty quick. I lost mine a month and a half after putting it on, so that isn't worth it. But the big rubberized stickers, they're worth it, and so are the paper stickers. And what's really cool is if you hold the paper stickers up to a light, you can actually see the coiling of the wire for the NFC.
I've been wanting to do things like, automate telling my wife when I'm leaving work. And I've looked at doing like geofencing and things like that, but then anytime I go to an offsite meeting, she gets a text saying I'm leaving work.
Right.
So one of those stickers would be perfect. I put one where I drop my phone and tell it if it's between the hours of 3 p.m. and 5 p.m., send this text message.
Yep, exactly. And then I have one, because I get home usually before she does, so I have another one at home, right at my front door, that I swipe it, and it sends her a text saying I made it home. It turns back on my Wi-Fi, and yeah, it's a cool.
Yeah.
They're handy. Once you start using them, you're like, well, now I don't have to do anything because I can just swipe this silly sticker, and it does 20 things at once.
It's important that I tell my wife when I'm coming home because she's expected to have dinner ready the second I walk in the door. And if she doesn't, I beat her severely. So if I forget to send the text message and she gets a beating because of that, I feel a little bad about that. Not a lot, but a little bad about that.
You just got to get over feelings like that, Mark.
The trouble is if you don't beat your wife every day, she starts to think she has rights, and then, things really just get bad from there.
But I'm dumb.
Okay, so I'm going to end that discussion and all others following it. And because we've taken up over an hour of hostful goodness, we're going to do one news story, but it's the one that I think is interesting. Just who writes the Linux kernel anyway?
That is a good question.
Yeah, there's they recently put out their kind of state of the kernel report, and I was going to go look at the report itself, but I didn't want to sign up on the website. So this comes from ZDNet's coverage of their thing, and just a bunch of numbers here, and I just wanted to let the listeners know I am learning. I pulled out the different salient points, and I stuck them in the show notes, so I'm not skimming through the article. See, Mark, I'm keeping it raw and real.
That's right.
Yeah, 19.4% of all Linux kernel development done since September of 2013 appears to have been done by individual developers. So that's roughly 20% of the code. 1 out of every 5 things was done by an individual guy, such as you or me. Probably not me because I don't do much coding, but and then they break it down by the major corporations. And leading the way was Intel with just over 10.5%, followed by Red Hat, 8.4%, and then Lenario, Samsung, IBM, and SUSE winds out the major contributors at 3%. And there were several neat facts, and I'll just kind of give you some of the bullet points. They found out that in any given development cycle, only approximately 1/3 of the developers involved contributed exactly 1 patch. So it's not like you have this guy trying to do everything. You have a bunch of people, and they work on their section of the code, and they patch their section of the code. Since 2.611, the top 10 developers have contributed 8.2% of the code total. So that shows you that it's not just a few people. The top 10% don't even make up 10% of the code. So there's really a lot of people in there doing it. The Linux kernel changes are coming fast and furious. The community merges patches at over 7.7 patches per hour on average. They talked about how the unpaid developers contributing seems to be diminishing. In 2012, it was 14%, and this last one found it at 11.8%. So
let's stop there for a second. I think,
okay.
Yes, I can see that as maybe troubling that Linux is becoming a professional thing and the everyman isn't part of it anymore. But I choose to see that as another light. The reason that patches by unpaid developers are becoming fewer is that companies are hiring developers and paying them.
I can see that. Either that or people's real world life is starting to get more in the way as we try to cram more and more into our life.
Yeah, I just, I mean, and that was, on the one hand, it's good because you have people that stuff they do. Somebody just doing it out of labor of passion, but I mean, it just kind of shows the change. It's getting away from the kind of, anti-establishment, we're sticking it to the man, to now it's becoming another tool of the man. And,
maybe that's just a fine example of more and more people going to the linuxacademy.com and learning how to become Linux professionals. Where you can go to their website and learn using step-by-step video courses how to take you from being a beginner to a Linux administrator, preparing yourself for certification using, as I said already, the step-by-step videos, the PDF study guides, the practice exams, their amazing lab environment where you can have up to 4 machines running simultaneously out of 8 possible machines, and then the a la carte learning that lets you pick up what you want to do when you want to do it, and they're adding new things all the time. There's not just all about Linux. They have Amazon Web content as well, certified by independent reviewers as being high quality content. They're one of their most recent courses is Ruby on Linux, so you get to learn the Ruby programming language in the Linux environment. They have a Linux Essentials. The idea there is that you don't need to know everything, you just need to know the basics so that you can understand that and so much more over at the Linux Academy for a pittance, for something that an unemployed guy can afford. $25 a month is the highest price you could possibly pay. If you want to buy in advance, you get cheaper. Anything else, the more you buy, the cheaper it is. $65 for 3 months, or $215 annually, which breaks down to just under $18 a month. But if you go and use the URL linuxacademy.com/everydaylinux, you get a special price on that. You will pay less. So there you go. I slipped an ad in there. Now, Seth, please continue your article.
Yeah, I was just going to. I was going to do that anyway. They summed up, like, this is the last sentence of the article. Put it all together, and what you see is a Linux that now, more than ever, is a Linux created by big business rather than volunteers. There's money to be made in their code bases, and so using something such as linuxacademy.com to grow your skill set, I mean, there's money to be made out there. Right. So,
and I think that's a good thing. I know that the pioneers of the Linux world, the old graybeards, would decry that and say, like you said, it's the man taking over our thing. But the only way your thing is going to continue to grow is if the man gets involved. Linux has grown as big as it can get with where we are now. It's got to have some big guns invested in it. It's got to have some deep pockets if it's going to grow. And this is a good thing to me, seeing that 20% of the code is contributed by people who are paid to contribute code. That is huge. There wasn't anybody paid to contribute code 20 years ago.
Right. And another thing, the great thing about Linux, there are so many communities where you can get involved. And if you're new to Linux, don't try to be involved in every single thing out there. Pick a couple of things, give them a try. If you find you like one, stick with it. If not, drop it and pick up something else. You can get real-world experience that employers would be looking for in the community. Bug reports, bug fixes, coding, getting a good reputation in the forum. Like this one guy who said he wanted to get his Red Hat certified engineer certification. If he has a good rep in the forums on Red Hat site, then when he goes into a job, he can use his community standing as one of the talking points when he's selling himself to get that position. And it works out well for him because he was able to get experience, but without a job, and then he can turn around and leverage that experience to get a job. So there's still, tremendous opportunity to get involved in Linux without having a paying job. You can still get experience without a job in Linux. Some things you really got to have experience to get the job, but you can't get experience without a job. That's not yet true in Linux. You can get lots of experience without a job. There's tons of opportunities in the forums out there if somebody, and that's the big if you want to put in the time, it's the exact same thing as Linux Academy. If you want to put in the time, it's a great resource. If you don't want to put in the time, you're throwing money away.
And the democratization of open source is still there. The patch that the guy who's working on the weekends puts in is reviewed with the same intensity as the guy from paid by Red Hat to do it. The patches are all reviewed, at a rate of 7 per hour, right? They're cranking those out, and if your code is good, it doesn't matter your pedigree, and so that makes the vision of open source still alive and well,
and not going to change anytime soon, I think.
Right. I mean, you still have the Linux code protector, Linus himself and the Linux Foundation. They're monitoring this stuff closely, and that's fine. Everybody needs a kernel Nazi, and when Linus moves on, somebody else equally as mean and nasty will need to have that position. You need a good kernel Nazi, but the eyes with which they look are not who made it, but is the code good and does it work well?
And that's all that matters.
Right.
Really.
Yep.
All right, that was a fun show. Not at all the way I expected it to go, but I should be used to that by now. This is the part of the show where Seth tells us what happened this week in tech history.
Okay, I stumbled across this little fact, and I thought I would stick it out there for everyone. February the 19th, 1990, so 25 years ago, the release of Photoshop 1.0.
Wow.
Photoshop, I mean, there are other image manipulation programs, but Photoshop is the name in image manipulation. When somebody says Photoshop it, they don't necessarily mean use Photoshop. They mean fix the photo. It's like the same way if you say Xerox that, you don't mean find a Xerox copier. You mean make a copy.
Yeah, Xerox, Kleenex, Jell-O, it has become eponymous. Eponymous? How do you pronounce that? I've only ever seen it read.
Yeah, we read it too.
But anyway, it has become the thing that is the name for which all things like it are. Photoshop disasters, and let's go to Photoshop it, or somebody looks at something that's photoshopped. That's amazing. I wonder if they thought in 1990 that they'd be anywhere near that. I can't imagine that they would, but that's cool that they've become not only a household name, but they have become the thing, the name in that thing.
Yeah, right. And they put out kind of and of course it's from Adobe, so it's a PDF, but you can view it online, a list of kind of Photoshop achievements. And I did not know this, but The Abyss was released in August of '89. It was the first motion picture to use Photoshop. So before Photoshop 1.0 was released, it was already used by in major motion pictures.
Interesting.
Yeah, and again, that's not like, I mean, I thought The Abyss was okay. I thought it was about 18 hours too long, but
it was James Cameron. What do you expect?
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. They were using by definition, I guess it was a beta software since it hadn't got to 1.0 yet.
That is a neat bit of trivia. So while we're on the subject of neat bits of trivia, Seth, what do you have this week to bring down my productivity so that you seem like a better hiring choice?
Well, there's lots of people out who are kind of amateur photographers, and so I thought, I'd kind of stick with the Photoshop theme, and I had some news stories we didn't get to. This stuck with the photo theme, but you can go to photo.net. Photo.net is a robust, collaborative, peer-to-peer educational platform for photographers ranging from hobbyists to professionals. So, me personally, I'm not a big photographer, photo taker type person, but you can go there. There's different contests, and you can just see photos of the day and see all the neat things people catch, and lots of stuff to look around on. And if you are a photography hobbyist, then go there and go, oh, I never thought of taking a photo like that. They talk about different hardware you can use, all these kinds of stuff. Best and worst of photography out there, from a hobbyist to a pro. Photo.net.
Very cool. I like it. I count myself as a hobbyist, so.
Well,
This will be a fun
photography is become one of those things like cooking, where professional grade tools are available to everybody. So it's easy to be an amateur photographer using only a camera phone. They're as good as the pro models were 20 years ago.
Right.
So it's interesting. There's lots of really bad photos in the world from people who think they're photographers, but it also, the barrier to entry is almost non-existent. You can get a pro grade camera for a couple $100.
Couple hundred. Yeah, a couple hundred.
And that pro grade camera is probably better than the pro grade cameras that the pros were using, in the 40s and 50s, right? These iconic. Who's the guy that does the black and white stuff? I knew his name until I started talking about
Ansel Adams.
Ansel Adams, right? Your phone is better than what he had to work with when in his heyday, most likely. So now it's not the technology that holds you back; it's the technique, the talent, the skill, and the same as cooking. Everybody thinks they're a gourmet because we have great tools available, and I think it's a sign of the times. And I think Apple is more responsible for that than most people want to give them credit for. There were camera phones before Apple, but the iPhone made the camera good. And other people had to run to catch up and then even surpass the iPhone. But I think that I think Apple gets credit for starting this. And I don't like to give Apple credit for anything.
I wouldn't say starting, but bringing it to the masses.
Well, starting the mass migration is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Well, okay. I'm not going to split hairs.
I mean, Nokia makes better camera phones. Other people have better. So the Photoshop guys, right? Without them, people wouldn't be doing this stuff. Instagram is a thing because Photoshop was a thing.
Right.
Well, yeah, and back in the day, Photoshop cost you hundreds of dollars, and now you can use Instagram filters to do effects that just a couple of generations ago would have broken the bank. Yeah. So
you can also throw your camera in the mud and kick it and not need Instagram.
Yeah, that's true.
Instagram,
sure
making photos look
first.
crappy since 2010.
Yep, pretty much.
Stealing Facebook's money since shortly after that.
Oh, this is really nice. This one I just looked at here is a banner that says Alf Price. The H is kind of folded up, and there's this little girl looking at it like, the what? Alf Price? And it's just a neat shot.
Interesting.
I like those photojournalistic, everyday life sort of things. All right, this is the part of the show where I tell you how you can contact us and let us know what a terrible show this was and how wrong I am in every word that I speak. You can go to elementop.com, click the Contact Us button at the top of the page. That will send a nicely formatted email to me that gets priority in my inbox. If you would like to send an email to all of us, if you're an email kind of guy, you don't like web forms, you can't handle the super hard CAPTCHA with questions like what grows in a cornfield, you can handle that by sending an email to edl@elementop.com, or if you want your voice to appear right here beside mine, you can call 559-IAM-OP from anywhere in North America. That's a free call. Outside North America, just send me your audio file. I'm easygoing in that way. So that's how you can contact us. We love it when you do. Greg, you have not only given us fodder for this show, but the next show to come. The fact is, we ran out of real ideas a long time ago. So we need you guys to give us ideas because we got nothing. So
yeah, bring them.
So if you've got people you want us to interview, and we're happy to have them not return our calls, just let us know, and we'll do that. Again, we do this show for you, and we hope that you enjoy it. Seth, Chris, as always, thanks for being the awesome guest that you are. Listener out there, thank you for being the awesome listener that you are. And I'm going to say that ends this episode of Everyday Linux.
Snow day!
It'd be ice day, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Either way, it's not go to work day.
Darn it. I wish it was for me.
Goodbye, live viewers. We'll see you next time.
Later,
Toodles.
everyone.
Actually,